Cats can be sweet, loving, lazy, hyper, cold, affectionate, and everything in between. But make no mistake, cats are weird. But unless you're deathly allergic, they're also largely harmless, unless you freak them out and they get their claws into you. But as all cat lovers know, sometimes our otherwise friendly felines will bite us when we're trying to pet them, which makes no sense at all. Why get all bitey with the human who loves them, feeds them, and passively aggressively scoops their litter box? Some cat owners call these weird forays into ferocity love bites, but vets know better and call the behavior petting-induced aggression. Petting-induced aggression differs from flat-out unfriendly behavior. Some cats just don't like to be petted at all, period, and will take a swipe at you if you try. But that's not the behavior we're exploring here. A cat who exhibits petting-induced aggression will seek affection, submit to it, and then inexplicably start nibbling on you like you're made out of Meow Mix. What gives? Why the sudden revolt? According to the experts over at Vet Street, there are a few theories about why cats might do this. First of all, the ancestor of the modern house cat was probably a solitary animal, so the whole social hierarchy thing is still pretty new to her. Your cat may reach a point during that moment of shared affection where she thinks, I can't let this person think I'm actually domesticated or anything, I'd better just bite them. That might not explain all petting-induced aggression, though. Another theory is that some cats might actually experience prolonged petting negatively, and the biting is a reaction to that. It could be that petting actually starts to feel physically irritating to the cat when it's overdone. So maybe it literally just rubs the cat the wrong way. Biting also happens when a cat gets excited and decides the petting session should turn into playtime. Cats are predators after all, and they hone their hunting skills by batting Legos around on the floor, ambushing your ankles when you're on your way to the bathroom late at night, and possibly by biting you when you're trying to show affection. So if your particular brand of petting leans a little on the aggressive side, your cat could just be responding to that in a totally natural way. One final theory is that the sudden switch between enjoying the moment and thirsting for blood might actually be communicated, but in a subtle way.
A cat's eye reveals everything. What's that supposed to mean?
There could be small cues that the cat is no longer enjoying the interaction, but they may be so slight that some owners just don't notice them until it's too late. So what should a cat owner do with a furry friend who suffers from petting-induced aggression? Well, no one is saying these cats are a lost cause. It's really just a matter of learning how to tune into the animal's mood, so you can predict when a petting session might turn into a bloodbath. That could mean just taking note of how long your cat will usually tolerate petting before sinking their teeth into you, and then making sure you always stop well in advance of that. Or look for subtle cues like a flicking tail or flat ears. Bottom line, if you're at the end of your rope over your cat's constant chomping, consult a veterinarian. A professional can help you figure out how to better read your kitty's cues and keep the human nibbling to a minimum.
Cats' standoffish nature and refusal to participate in behavioral studies means that we know surprisingly little about what's going on inside a kitty's mind. Luckily, we're learning a little more each day about our feline friends. Here's a look at why exactly cats do some of the adorably weird things they do. No one's sure when cats first moved into our homes and hearts, but the most commonly repeated piece of trivia is that it happened in ancient Egypt around 4,000 years ago. They were considered sacred, treated like royalty, and valued as an important part of the family. There's other evidence that suggests cats arrived well before then, with remains of a human and cat who were buried together dating back 9,500 years. No one's exactly sure when these mysterious creatures showed up and volunteered their services, but we're definitely not complaining. While we consider our feline friends to be domesticated animals, that's not exactly the case. When scientists took an up-close and personal look at cats' DNA, they discovered that cats are still pretty wild, at least on a genetic level. Despite their name, domestic house cats still share most of their DNA with their wild cousins. Unlike dogs, who have mostly grown out of any wolf-like behavior, cats have kept their wild instincts, as well as their insistence to be treated like royalty. Some things never change. If you've ever wondered if your cat has a preferred paw, you're not alone. Psychologists at Queen's University Belfast were also interested to see which paw the majority of cats use the most. Researchers gave 42 different cats separate jars containing a bit of tuna, which the cats had to fish out in order to eat. Whichever paw the cat used to get their snack revealed to researchers whether the animal was right-pawed or left-pawed. Out of the 21 male and 21 female felines participating in the experiment, 20 of the males were deemed left-pawed, with one ambidextrous overachiever. Interestingly enough, 20 of the females proved to be right-pawed, and in true cat spirit, one female cat refused to conform to any human societal expectations. Cats are notoriously picky eaters. Just when you think you've got them figured out, they'll almost definitely prove you wrong. That's not just out of spite, however. Our feline friends are actually picky because of the weird way their taste buds work.
She's not allowed in the United States because she only eats bald eagles.
Cats have always been carnivores, and feral cats still rely on a heavily meat-based diet for survival. Their taste buds convey a huge amount of information, including when something's gone bad or been poisoned, and they also have 2 different receptors in their tongues that can taste bitterness. How cats interpret other kinds of flavors is still unclear, but one thing's for sure, if they don't like their dinner, they'll absolutely let you know. It's estimated that about 1 to 5% of cats suffer from a feline version of asthma, which is a lot like the asthma found in humans, complete with breathing issues and coughing. While a multitude of factors are often at play when a human develops asthma, the biggest cause for asthma in cats is, well, us. Human dandruff is cited as a major cause of feline asthma, along with other irritants that humans bring into their homes, like cigarette smoke. Some cats have such a powerful allergic reaction to humans and their disgusting habits that they have to fight to breathe and could suffer collapsed lungs or even broken ribs. Antibiotics and anti-inflammatories have been shown to help, and asthmatic cats can usually have their conditions managed, even though that's considered incurable. The moral of the story? If you want to be a cat parent, you should kick your bad habits first. It's an argument for the ages, who's smarter, cats or dogs? As it turns out, on a biological level, cats might have a slight edge on dogs. Just don't tell them that, they'll never let the dogs live it down. With the wonders of modern science, researchers have been able to measure the number of neurons present in the parts of cats' and dogs' brains responsible for things like problem solving and information processing. A cat has a staggering 300 million neurons in the information processing part of its brain, while a dog only has 160 million. Sorry, pups. While this means that cats are likely going to be mentally quicker than dogs in many respects, where do they fall in comparison to humans? Part of humans' processing power comes from the folds that are on the surface of our brains. Lots of wrinkles on the brain means a larger surface area, which subsequently means more processing power. Cats' brains happen to be wrinkled like human brains. In fact, they have a 90% similarity. They also have large and complex cerebral structures, which govern decision-making, memory, advanced planning, and reasoning skills. Their human-like brains means there's a lot going on in those tiny heads, and if cats ever found the time and motivation to care, they could outsmart circles around any dog. So the next time you suspect Kitty is plotting to install himself as the world's next great supervillain, well, you might be right. If you've ever known an outdoor cat, you know they have a tendency to disappear for a good long while whenever they feel like it, leaving you to wonder where in the world they've been all day or week. To get to the bottom of this mystery, the University of Illinois headed up a 2-year research study that fit 42 cats with radio trackers to monitor their every move. 23 of the cats, which were a mix of feral and free-roaming domesticated cats, were fitted with trackers that included vibration sensors. These sensors gave a glimpse not just into where the cats were at any given moment, but what they were doing. The cat with the biggest patch of kingdom was a male feral who wasn't named in the study, so we'll just call him Stewie. Stewie's home territory covered a whopping 1,351 acres that included everything from city streets and a college campus to fields. As far as researchers could tell, no one made an active effort to feed Stewie, and he was left to his own devices to find his dinner, as well as navigate his way through busy city streets and rural areas with dangers like coyotes. Stewie was a special case, but even the free-roaming cats that technically had homes wandered about 4.9 acres over the course of the study. However, researchers discovered that all of the cats favored being close to buildings. If there's one thing cats have in common with toddlers, it's their obsession with boxes. A box provides cats with a place to hide and ambush passing ankles, as well as the security of being inside an enclosed space. When researchers in the Netherlands studied the benefits of giving cats boxes to hide in, they found that cats with boxes adjusted much more easily to new surroundings and were far less stressed than cats without boxes. Essentially, hiding out in a box is a cat's way of resolving conflict. It's much more efficient for a cat to hide from their problems than it is for them to fight. That makes sense, but what's up with a cat's tendency to sit in other weird places, like in the bathroom sink or in bowls or on top of the highest shelf? Well, there's actually a physical explanation. Cats have a comfortable temperature range between 86 and 97 degrees Fahrenheit, which is much warmer than what humans prefer. That means cats tend to seek out sunny spots on the floor, as well as tiny, confined spaces to soak up any warmth they can. Cats don't just sleep a lot, they sleep all over the place. You might find Captain Fuzzybutt catching a nap in a window, in a chair upstairs, under your bed, on top of your kitchen cabinets, and in various other random places. Why do cats feel the need to switch up their napping spots so often? According to experts at Catster, part of the reason is seasonal. The windowsill that Fuzzy Butt loves in the summertime isn't as nice in the winter months, so he goes elsewhere until the long sunny afternoons come back. Other experts say part of the reason is likely instinctual. Cats in the wild tend to sleep in different places for safety, varying their routine to ensure they aren't easy targets for predators. As any owner of multiple cats knows, when there's more than one of them in the house, cats tend to get pretty territorial. You'll likely find the highest perch on the cat tree is the napping domain of the dominant or oldest cat. Some cats might share their space, but they probably won't be too happy about it. According to Senior Cat Wellness, we may play a part in a cat's sleeping arrangements, as sleeping with humans is a cat's way of bonding with them. If your cat goes from bed to bed, they probably just want to bond a little with everyone. Changes in mood or the family dynamic also influence a cat's behavior. Household chaos or grief over a lost friend might make your cat withdraw from his old favorite places. If you haven't figured it out by now, cats are complicated creatures. Admit it, you talk to your cat, and your cat talks back to you, in her own special way, of course. Cats have a whole bunch of ways to communicate with us, and it's up to humans to pay enough attention to their facial cues and body language to be able to understand what they're saying. While they're known for their meows, a lot of people don't realize that cats don't meow to communicate with any other animal, only humans. While kittens meow at their mothers, adult cats that live together don't usually meow at each other, and studies of feral cat colonies have found that adult cats in feline company are usually pretty quiet. Meowing is how your cat communicates with you in a way they think you'll understand, and if you pay close attention, you probably will. For example, meows that mean "give me food, human" will definitely sound different than meows that mean "please sit and give me cuddles." A 2003 Cornell University study had cat owners listen to recordings of various cats and try and decipher what the felines wanted based on the sounds they were making. However, the participants were only able to distinguish the specific wants of their own cat's meows. So while there probably isn't some universal cat language our feline friends are trying to teach us, they have trained us to recognize their own specific commands. That's right, your innocent-looking cat has mastered the skill of manipulation, and you've been his test subject all along. There's nothing cuter than a cat flopping over to show you her belly, and according to experts, that adorable little move is your cat's way of letting you know that she's super happy to see you. By showing off her most vulnerable bits and putting herself in the most vulnerable position, your cat is proving to you that she's happy, relaxed, and feels completely and totally safe in your company. Aww. According to Senior Cat Wellness, cats that sleep on their backs also feel the same sense of security around their people. If your kitty is prone to flopping over and exposing her belly while taking a cat nap, she's just letting you know that you're a pretty okay human in her book. That's a high compliment coming from a cat. Even the most marginal of cat people know that cats purr when they're happy. They make their signature noise using some sort of respiratory magic that happens within their diaphragm and larynx, but just how they do it remains one of the most baffling mysteries of modern science. However, don't always assume your cat is purring simply because she's content. Cats sometimes purr when they want us to keep petting them, or keep sitting down so they'll have a warm lap to lay on. It could be that your cat's purr isn't an expression of happiness, but more a dignified request or command. Cats are also known to purr when they're injured or scared, and researchers think it has something to do with a purr's healing power. Most domestic cats purr at a frequency of 26 Hz, which just so happens to be the same frequency that's been found to promote healing in bones and other body tissues. When cats are injured, they'll likely try to help themselves heal or comfort themselves by using the reverberation of their own purr. This is also why cats will often curl up with injured animal friends and purr. They're just trying to help. Purring is also something that dying cats have been observed doing, presumably to console themselves, and maybe to console their owners too. Yeah, that's not heartbreaking at all. Who else could use a good purr right now? Cats are adorable, furry little ninjas that share our homes with us and have an overwhelming urge to push things off other things. We opened our homes and our hearts to them a long time ago, but despite what we think we know about our hairball hacking friends, there's still a ton of misinformation floating around out there that just refuses to go away.
I bet it flattened itself out, went right through a seam in your wall.
I don't think there's anything in the laws of nature that would support that.
Cats do not abide by the laws of nature, right?
Cats love milk. You'll see this one everywhere. If there's a cat, they're given a saucer of milk. That's what cats like, right? Well, no. Cats drink milk as kittens, of course, all mammals do when they're young, but once they're weaned off their mother's milk, they stop producing all the enzymes they need to digest the stuff. Yes, like the nerdiest of nerds, they're lactose intolerant. There's another problem with milk too, and that's the fat and calorie content. Give a cat a saucer of milk as big as their head, and that's like you sitting down and eating a gallon of full-fat ice cream with some extra fat for good measure. They still might like the actual taste of milk, though, which is why they make lactose-free, low-fat cat milk. For cats, not from cats.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
Oh yeah, you can milk anything with nipples.
Keeping the balance. Popular belief says that whiskers are tied to a cat's sense of balance, which isn't exactly the case. Instead, those delicate little feelers are used for navigation and sensory perception. A cat's whiskers are made of the same material that makes up other animals' horns, keratin. They're connected to the cat's face through a whole bunch of nerves, and they can feel the changes in the air that happen as they get closer to walls and other obstacles, which helps them get around just a little more deftly than humans. Feet first. Your feline friend might land on their feet most of the time, but not always. Cats can twist their spines in a way that would kill a human. When a cat jumps, their sense of balance aligns the front half of their body while their twisty spine snaps into action and reflexively aligns the back half for a safe landing. Even though it's a reflex, it still takes time. If a cat falls from a low height, they might not have time to flip completely and they'll land on their side. Loners and rebels. It's unsurprising that cats absolutely can survive on their own and almost always hunt alone. But when they do gather in groups, they form close-knit relationships that often revolve around a core group of females. Not only do feral cats gather in colonies, but they share responsibilities, team up in raising each other's kittens, and they even have best friends. Cats in feral colonies usually pair off and hang out together, spend a huge amount of time grooming and greeting each other. It's thought that all that grooming isn't just about getting clean either, but that it's a way to mingle everyone's scents into a colony odor that identifies each individual as a part of the group. Fur versus personality. If you want a little love bug, get an orange cat. If you want someone to cast spells with, get a black cat. It's a common belief that certain colors are associated with certain personality traits. Researchers at UC Berkeley took a look at whether a cat's fur color has any effect on their personality and found nothing to support this popular myth. What they did find, though, was that the belief is so firmly entrenched in the collective consciousness that light-colored cats are considered friendlier, so they get adopted more often. Cats are picked on appearance rather than personality, and when that belief doesn't prove true, they're often returned. So whatever you do, don't judge a cat by its color. Keeping the claws. People think declawing is a painless process, sort of like getting your nails cut permanently. Not quite. Contrary to popular belief, declawing is much worse than it sounds. The procedure removes part of the cat's paws, and the human equivalent of the same procedure would be cutting off each and every one of your fingers at the first joint. A whole bunch of medical problems are associated with declawing as well, like permanent nerve damage and bone spurs that make it painful for the cat to even walk. There's plenty of short-term horribleness too, like bleeding paws and a high rate of infection. People who think it's a good idea to get a cat declawed often say they do it to put an end to things like scratching the furniture or scratching humans. While they may not be scratching anymore, they still have teeth, and they will use them. Cats are standoffish. People study cat behavior for a living, and yes, they work at real universities. They found cats are every bit as affectionate and loving as dogs, they just don't express it the same way. Researchers point to a few key findings when it comes to cat affection. Purring has traditionally been interpreted as happiness, but it's closer to a cat asking you to keep doing whatever you're doing. When they rub against you, it's the cat equivalent of giving you a big hug. And how adorable is that? There's also the slow blink, which means they're totally comfortable with you being around. They also found out that every cat and owner has their own super secret language, which was discovered during a study that found an owner could tell exactly what a cat was saying, but only if it was their own cat. So there you have it. Not only are cats affectionate, but they like you so much they develop a secret language just to talk to you. If that's not love, we don't know what is.
Weirdly enough, you never really think of cats as particularly buff animals. Okay, sure. Maybe there's this guy, but he's the kind of exception that proves the rule. People tend to think of most felines as graceful, intelligent, playful, and occasionally evil, but never strong. But maybe it's time that changed. Maybe it's time for a new perspective on these sleek little devils. Maybe it's time humankind came together and asked, just what is the world's strongest breed of cat? Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to swing by your local strong cat competition and grab the pick of the muscular litter. And literature on this subject is, well, let's just call it limited at best.
There's nothing. We've got nothing.
Don't give up just yet, though. In this particular case, speed and agility might well suffice as an analog to raw strength. After all, those are the most obvious positive characteristics of a cat's physiology. So it makes sense that a cat who can run at high speeds and nimbly navigate obstacles is likely to be, in scientific terms, the swollest cat of them all. According to the Spruce Pets, the Egyptian Meow is the fastest domestic cat on the planet. Heavily muscled and strong, this highly athletic breed's top speed is about 30 miles per hour, making it just about fast enough to get ticketed in a school zone. More impressive still, the Egyptian Meow is believed to be a descendant of the domestic cats worshipped 4,000 years ago by, you guessed it, the ancient Egyptians. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the sun god Ra is depicted as a spotted tabby cat, and the Egyptian Meow is the only naturally occurring spotted breed of domestic cat. Logically then, it's safe to assume that Ra, Egyptian god of gods, ruler of the sky, king of the earth and lord of the underworld, was, in fact, an Egyptian Meow. You know, if you're into all that stuff. The breed as it exists today arrived in Europe sometime prior to World War II, and like many species, quickly suffered as a result of that conflict. On the brink of extinction, the breed was rescued by an exiled Russian princess named Natalie Trubetskoy. Trubetskoy was a Polish-born nurse who, after serving in both World War I and World War II, ended up pretty much saving the entire Egyptian Meow species single-handedly.
No biggie.
According to legend, Trubetskoy was residing in Rome in the 1950s when a boy handed her a kitten in a shoebox. The boy had received the little Egyptian Meow from a diplomat and evidently decided to give it away, because, you know, not everyone's a cat person. Trubetskoy, however, became smitten with the kitten, so she made it her mission to rescue as many Egyptian Meows as she could. She contacted more diplomats, asking them to import more cats to expand the gene pool. And in 1956, Trubetskoy took 3 of these felines to the United States and founded a cattery called Fatima. Before long, Americans had fallen head over heels for the breed. Obviously, today's Egyptian Meows don't quite enjoy the high life their ancestors once had in ancient Egypt. Even in Egypt themselves, they're seen more as pests than gods. Like other cats, they litter the streets of Cairo and are outright hated by many of the city's residents, many of whom mistreat and disrespect them. Today, Egyptian Meows are intentionally hit by drivers and ruthlessly poisoned by landlords, all in the very same land where killing a cat was once itself a crime punishable by death. It's only through the efforts of groups like the Egyptian Meow Rescue Organization that these cats are sheltered, bred, and protected in their own home country. Still, if history has shown us anything, it's that the Egyptian Meow is a hardy cat, one that can fall from the heavens to the edge of extinction and still land on its feet. And in the end, isn't that the real definition of strength? No, actually it's muscles. Big cat muscles. Sorry, Scottish folds.
On May 14, 2019, the world lost a role model, an icon, and a meme goddess when Grumpy Cat died at an early age. But while you're probably familiar with her face, and maybe her target line, there's more to this grump than meets the eye. Despite being known the world over as Grumpy Cat, that famous title wasn't her real name. It was actually Tartar Sauce, which is slightly less descriptive. According to Business Insider, she got her original moniker from owner Tabitha Bundeson's daughter Crystal, whose mom had just made her try the condiment. At the time, Tabitha was a waitress at Red Lobster. She told Mental Floss, "Crystal was like, ew, no," and I said, "Honey, you have to try it, it goes with fish." So it was fresh in her mind when the kitten was born. Crystal evidently thought the kitten's orangish-colored fur resembled Red Lobster's orangish-colored tartar sauce. But after fame and fortune, Tartar Sauce's family mostly just called her by her popular name, with Bundeson admitting in 2013, "It's pretty much Grumpy all the time now." Grumpy Cat's frowny face made her famous, but her sour-looking mug didn't mean she was literally grumpy. Cats tend to communicate unhappiness with body language and vocalizations, like growling or biting or randomly swatting you just when you think you're having a bonding moment. Grumpy Cat's frowny face was actually caused by an underbite and a type of feline dwarfism, which was also responsible for her large eyes and small size of less than 5 pounds.
Grumpy Cat's not grumpy like she seems at all.
Grumpy Cat's demeanor didn't match her outward appearance either. In 2013, Bundeson said her behavior was pretty much in line with every other cat on the planet, telling Mental Floss, "She's super frisky, especially between 3 and 6 a.m. When you're trying to get your deepest sleep, she's wanting to play." Yeah, that sounds about right. Grumpy Cat first appeared in the public's consciousness in September 2012 when Bundeson's brother posted a photo of the cat on Reddit, captioned, "Meet Grumpy Cat." The post went viral, notching 1 million views within 48 hours. And part of the furor had to do with people questioning the truth of the photo. According to People magazine, a lot of viewers thought the image had been photoshopped, so Bundeson ended up posting a follow-up video on YouTube to help counter the rumors.
We posted the first 10-second video on YouTube because we wanted to prove that she really looked that grumpy.
Even compared to the original photograph, the follow-up videos were extra adorable, which naturally led to the internet losing its collective mind and crowning Grumpy Cat as an overnight star. It wasn't long before Grumpy Cat memes full of pessimistic messages of anti-hope were plastered all over the internet. And so, a star was born. An ill-tempered, disgruntled, petulant star, sure, but a star nonetheless. Before her pet became famous, Bundison was struggling to make ends meet as a waitress. But all of that changed after Grumpy Cat's Reddit debut. She told The Telegraph in 2014, "I was able to quit my job as a waitress within days of her first appearance on social media, and the phone simply hasn't stopped ringing since." Grumpy Cat's Reddit fame eventually gave rise to Grumpy Cat Limited, a company which still sells Grumpy-themed apparel, calendars, keychains, pillows, and other products, even a line of perfume called Kitten Fur.
It's still kind of unreal to me. I mean, we get to travel a lot more than I ever would have been able to.
Not only was Grumpy Cat not an only child, but her brother has the same condition that she did. But according to the cat's family, he wasn't blessed with that signature perma-frown. Bundison told Mental Floss, "He does have dwarfism, so he's super short and cute too. His face isn't as frowny as hers, but he does have an underbite." Grumpy Cat's brother is named Pokey, and he's gotten a little bit of airtime, though not as much as his meme phenomenon sister. That's probably because his face has less of the "I hate you" countenance and more of the typical "you are a peasant" look that pretty much every cat's face has. BuzzFeed described him, saying, "Pokey doesn't hate you personally, he just finds you to be vaguely contemptuous." Deep down inside, all cats want their own personal chef, some petting on demand, and a publicist to deal with unsolicited attention. While we don't know if Grumpy Cat had a full staff at her disposal, she definitely had a good PR team. In fact, her publicist is the one who announced her passing on Twitter with the bittersweet words, "Some days are grumpier than others." At various times, Grumpy Cat also had her own bodyguard too, including Chase Burns, who guarded the famous feline at an art museum in 2013, where Grumpy was appearing as a special guest of the Internet Cat Video Festival. Chase told The Stranger, "A crowd of what I assume to have been thousands was waiting to take a picture and, if they were lucky, pet the cat." So don't say she was only internet famous. Her star really was that bright. If you had to imagine what a famous cat eats, you'd probably picture tuna pate, grilled salmon, or some other luxury. In Grumpy Cat's case, you might imagine that even the finest fish wouldn't be enough to turn that frown upside down. But Grumpy Cat actually had much simpler taste than that. She was the frisky spokescat, so it probably goes without saying that she ate a lot of Frisky's cat food, even though she was also a millionaire with access to more premium offerings. According to Mental Floss, her favorite food was Frisky's savory shreds, though she did branch out into tuna on occasion. She also reportedly ate Starbucks coffee cake, an affordable indulgence which truly signifies her as a star for the masses. Whenever a human being dares to make a little money off an animal, there are going to be people crying foul. And a lot of people complained that Grumpy Cat was being exploited by the Bundisons. The Daily Dot characterized the phenomenon of her fame with a pointed critique, saying, "She's clearly exhausted and perhaps not entirely pleased to be trotted out, manhandled, subjected to teeming crowds, flashing cameras, and terrifying camera sets. She didn't choose this particular career, though her owners seem perfectly happy to exploit her."
I think she could care less, but we all think it's totally awesome.
It is worth noting, though, that PETA, a famously critical organization, said that the cat's working schedule wasn't anything to worry about. The notorious animal rights group even cleared a 2013 South by Southwest appearance because of the care that had clearly been taken on behalf of Grumpy Cat's welfare. Visitors weren't allowed to touch her, and the public had access to her only in one-hour intervals. The Bundisons have had to devote a lot of energy to reassuring the public about Grumpy Cat's well-being. They even said via their website, 99% of the time she is a normal kitty. She isn't in front of a camera all of the time like many people perceive. We only take photo sets once every week or so, and on the few occasions where we have met with the media or licensed partners, we ensure the sessions are short and that she isn't handled by many people.
Being a great pet parent is giving your pet a good, happy life.
As for the idea that Grumpy Cat is drugged during her personal appearances, they have an answer for that too. Tabitha's brother Brian told Mental Floss, "She never has been sedated and never will be. Her health and safety is the most important thing to us." With viral fame comes book and movie deals, even for notoriously miserable felines. Grumpy Cat had such a prolific career in advertising that Ad Age devoted an entire article to her accomplishments, which included a deal for a series of Grumpy Cat Golden Books and a Lifetime movie called Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas Ever, with one critic warning via Daily Dot, "It promises to be an absolutely excruciating experience, so self-referential and self-deprecating that it becomes almost unbearable."
For my Christmas wish, I wish I'd meet a friend, one on whom I can depend.
So, me? You really screwed up your big wish.
Grumpy Cat was also credited as a published author. Her book credits include The Grumpy Guide to Life, Observations by Grumpy Cat, and Grumpy Cat, A Grumpy Book. Name one human being who has won a Lifetime Achievement Award at the age of 18 months. Bet you can't do it. Grumpy Cat, on the other hand, was so accomplished at that age that in 2013 she got a Friskies Lifetime Achievement Award for, quote, doing the most to help cats take over the internet. That same year, she was named the official spokescat for Friskies, and in that role, she got to star in several ads and social media videos, including one entitled, It's Hard to Be a Cat at Christmas, where she shares the spotlight with other famous internet cats. Friskies donated cans of cat food to shelter animals in exchange for views, so Grumpy Cat was also kind of a philanthropist, even if she wasn't entirely aware of it. That's a lot of achievement for anyone, especially for a cat.
How do you plan to bolster and strengthen your brand for maximum monetization?
Besides selling a lot of Friskies, books, calendars, and t-shirts, Grumpy Cat sold coffee and cereal too. According to Ad Age, in 2014 she appeared in a Honey Nut Cheerios commercial where she met Buzz the Bee and proceeded to predictably not get along with him.
Not even a smile?
Then, in 2018, owner Tabitha partnered with Grenade Beverage Company, and the Grumpy Cat Grumpachino was born. But Grenade Beverage went on to also sell Grumpy Cat ground coffee and t-shirts, even though their contract didn't give them the right to use the cat's likeness on other products. Bundesen eventually won $710,000 for copyright and trademark infringement, thus proving that with the right representation, even a cat can sue the pants off the people who displease her. No one really knows how much Grumpy Cat was worth because the Bundesens kept it private. According to the tabloid Express, the cat amassed more than $100 million in her first 2 years as a star, dwarfing the earnings of celebs like Gwyneth Paltrow, who earned an estimated $20 million in the year the comparison was made. Bundesen told the Huffington Post that the number was, quote, completely inaccurate, though she declined to clarify with what the actual figure was. While Bundesen at first expressed a hope to set the record straight on the scale of Grumpy Cat's success, it looks like she never followed up on that comment. But while we can only speculate about the exact numbers, it's safe to say that the Grumpy Cat brand was pretty lucrative. Grumpy Cat died of complications from a urinary tract infection, something that's actually really common in cats and can be deadly. Grumpy Cat also had feline dwarfism, which might have made her more susceptible to such complications. According to Senior Cat Wellness, birth abnormalities can cause dysfunction in the feline urinary tract, but whether or not the condition that gave the cat her distinctive face also contributed to her health crisis is just speculation, and we may never know why Grumpy Cat died so tragically young, but it's clear that she had the best care and that the family did everything they could to save her. But that doesn't make it any easier to say goodbye. Whether you loved Grumpy Cat from her first day to her last, or had grown kind of sick of seeing her all over the internet, there's no denying the impact she had on popular culture.
What do people love about Grumpy Cat? Why do you think she's such a huge phenomenon?
It's that classic frown. Misery loves company.
Her family summed up her life by saying, Grumpy Cat has helped millions of people smile all around the world, even when times were tough. Her spirit will continue to live on through her fans everywhere.
Does Grumpy Cat have a message for her fans?
Come see me at Madame Tussauds. I'll be napping.
If dogs are manipulative, cats are devious masterminds, quietly purring in their little heads as they've already made us do whatever they want before we even know what happened. But do you know what their various vocalizations mean? Let's explore them. It turns out that cats are actually pretty awful at asking for help in an easily understandable manner. The reason for this is extremely on brand though. Cats aren't really into the whole calling for help thing, to a point that they really don't have an easy expression for it in their language kit. Interestingly enough, the closest thing they have for it is purring of all things. Most people think that purring is solely a cat's happy sound, but in reality it has layers upon layers. When your cat is purring, it's essentially telling you that it'd prefer you stay put. Sure, it can be a sign that Kitty is as happy as it's ever been, but according to University of Georgia professor of veterinary behavior Sharon Crowell Davis, it could also mean that it's asking you to stick around because it's injured or feels sick. According to the ASPCA, meowing is another all-purpose tool cats use, and interestingly, adult cats only use it to communicate with humans. Unfortunately, they tend to use it for pretty much everything. While a cat could meow simply to say hi, it could also be asking you to do any number of things. It's up to you to figure out just what that is and how critical it is. The fact that cats are stuck in a weird limbo of potentially ambiguous meowing and purring is particularly strange when you take into account the fact that cats, in fact, do have a whole host of other sounds that seem like they might be calling for help, or at the very least, reinforcements. Stamford, Connecticut veterinarian Dr. Sasha Gibbons reveals that while these potentially worrying vocalizations have fairly specific meanings, they're not even remotely distress-related. If you're a cat lover, you might be familiar with the trill, a weird sound that almost sounds like a bird chirping. This may sound like your cat is malfunctioning in a profound way, but in reality, the trill is merely a feline way of greeting fellow cats and people alike. The most accurate translation would probably be a positive, welcoming, "Hey, look at me." Another odd feline enunciation you might have encountered is the rapid chattering sound that is accompanied with the strange visual of the cat quickly vibrating its lower jaw. Appropriately enough, this strange noise is known as the chatter, and cats tend to reserve it exclusively for birds. Some say that the chatter is a sound of excitement. Others think it's all about frustration. Others still view it as a cat's spirited attempt to mimic bird song. However, regardless of the motivation behind the chatter, its meaning is perfectly clear. The cat is currently seeing a bird and would very much like to attack said bird right now, thank you very much. While there may be no simple way to tell whether your cat is crying for help or merely complaining about the fact that you've switched from wet food to kibble, Catster tells us there's one cat sound that's invariably a distress call. We're talking, of course, about caterwauling, the howling, drawn-out wail that most cat owners know and dread. While it's pretty much always a signal that something's wrong with the cat, it's unfortunately just as vague as many other cat vocalizations. Caterwauling is often a breeding signal used by female cats in heat and nearby unneutered male cats alike. Then again, a spirited caterwaul might also be used during feline turf disputes, or it might mean that your furry friend is hurting, disoriented, frightened, hungry, thirsty, sick, or otherwise experiencing some temporary crisis that requires assistance. You'll notice that a lot of these things are the exact same situations a cat may also express via purring or meowing. So yeah, caterwauling doesn't seem to be a help me sound as much as its primal all-purpose arg. But hey, we're talking about cats here. That's probably as close as we're going to get.
Cats sure do love to make biscuits. In case you don't happen to be a cat person and have no idea what that means, kneading or making biscuits is when a cat steps on something soft and then alternately pushes on the soft surface with each foot, sometimes with, sometimes without claws. But why do they do it? According to Live Science, no one's really sure why cats knead, but there are plenty of people with ideas. One popular theory is that cats do this because it's something they did when they're kittens. Kneading on mom, officially known as milk treading, makes the milk flow faster. When cats become adults, they'll continue to perform this behavior because it gives them comfort. After all, who doesn't need to feel comforted after a long day of sleeping, yawning, stretching, moving to a new sunbeam, and then sleeping some more? Some people think cats that knead may have been taken from their mothers too soon, but most experts don't agree with that theory for the simple reason that all cats seem to enjoy kneading. You could argue that that's just evidence of an epidemic of kittens who are weaned too young, but kneading is really too universal to be anything other than the normal behavior of a normal cat. If you need further proof, house cats aren't the only type of feline that continues the kneading behavior past kittenhood. Big cats like lions do it too, so it does seem to be a behavior that's programmed into cats both big and small. Let's just hope most big cats prefer to do their kneading on patches of dry grass rather than human laps, because otherwise, ouch. That's not the only theory though. PetMD notes that some people think that cats do this in order to compact their sleeping area. That's not so important now that they're domesticated and have beds made out of soft fabric, but it was probably pretty useful during a time when most beds were just a pile of grass or weeds out in the woods somewhere. Cats also have scent glands in their paws, so kneading could just be a way of marking territory. That doesn't explain why cats almost universally seem to prefer kneading on soft surfaces, though. If they were marking territory, surely they'd also knead on their litter boxes, the kitchen table, and your ankles, because everyone knows cats have the exclusive property rights to all of those things. Some humans love the kneading behavior. It's sweet and affectionate, and maybe slightly painful, but, still sweet and affectionate. However, you may not actually enjoy the rhythmic sensation of claws in flesh, so Mother Nature Network has a few suggestions for discouraging kneading if you feel you really must. First, you could gently nudge your cat into a lying down position and just bypass the whole kneading part of the ritual altogether. Or you could distract your cat with something to eat or play with, although that seems like it would just be opening you up to new claw-related hazards. Alternately, you can just try to keep your cat's claws trimmed, or keep a towel or other claw shield next to you wherever you usually happen to be sitting when Kitty decides to turn your lap into a slab of biscuit dough. Or, if you want Kitty to stay off your lap when kneading, you can keep a cat bed or something else that's soft and enticing nearby, and then just redirect your cat to that spot every time he or she feels, the need to knead. Whatever you do, don't punish your cat for kneading. Kneading is a natural behavior, and animals should never be punished for engaging in behaviors that come naturally to them. We may not know with 100% certainty the reasons for our cat's sweet kneading behavior, but it's probably safe to assume they're not doing it as practice so they can land a spot on Chopped. Most of them aren't, anyway.
Because we love our cats, we want what's best for them. But you might not actually know what's best for your cat, because there are some pretty weird and benign-seeming things in our homes that can be dangerous for our feline friends. Here are some things that no one should ever be doing to their cat. If cats were still living in the wild, they'd use their claws to climb trees, dispatch prey, and attack the ankles of bears or something. They probably wouldn't last long as a species, but that's probably what they would do. The common domesticated cat has not evolved much since that time. They love to bat things around on the floor, and they have to scratch things. In other words,
is your cat making too much noise all the time? Is your cat constantly stomping around, driving you crazy?
If so, declawing your cat is not the solution. In the past, humans responded to the destruction of chairs and couches by declawing the offenders. But most experts today agree that declawing is unnecessarily cruel. The declawing procedure doesn't just remove the claw, it also removes the last bone on each toe. A declawed cat may develop permanent pain and/or complications such as nerve damage and bone spurs. Cats can also develop behavioral problems, and without claws, cats may turn to biting as a form of self-defense. Cats were born to stalk, pounce, and attack things, so it does seem kind of cruel to keep them locked up in a house where they do nothing but sleep in sunbeams all day. Some people still persist in believing that for a cat's life to be truly complete, the cat must be either exclusively an outdoor cat or an indoor-outdoor cat. Outdoor cats may be living like their ancestors. That's not necessarily a good thing. Cats aren't tigers. Let's put it this way. If you traded your comfy jeans for animal skins and moved into a cave, you'd be living like your ancestors too. But would you feel more fulfilled? Well,
these cats live tragically short lives. They suffer from disease, they're hit by cars, and they get attacked by animals, including other cats.
outdoor cats are more susceptible to picking up viruses and parasites too. Maybe an outdoor cat has the unique opportunity to sit and stare at a gopher hole for hours, but that doesn't make all the mortal peril worthwhile. Your cat probably becomes affectionate in the presence of cheese or bacon. Your cat probably isn't cunning enough to stick around after the cheese or bacon is gone, though. Since food-related affection is the only sort you're likely to get from your indifferent roommate, you may be tempted to offer up all sorts of human treats as a form of affection bribery, but you shouldn't.
Once again, my life has been saved by the miracle of lasagna.
Don't believe Garfield. Cats aren't meant to eat human food, and certain foods can lead to vomiting, or worse, serious illness and even death. You probably already know that chocolate and onions are bad for dogs, but those foods are also bad for cats. So just to be on the safe side, don't leave half-eaten slices of chocolate cake lying around, and the same goes for bowls of alcoholic punch, grapes and raisins, or guacamole. Those foods can all be toxic to cats. When your cat surprises you by teleporting directly into the bowl of chili you were eating, you might be tempted to give him or her a little push off the edge of the table. Cats always land on their feet, so what's the big deal? Well, cats often do a very good job of landing on their feet, but they're not birds. Cats can't fly, and falling from an elevated surface is still pretty dangerous for them. Plus, pushing your cat from that elevated surface also doesn't really address the problem. Your cat probably won't even connect the act of jumping on the counter with the act of being pushed off of it, so it's fairly useless as a form of punishment. Instead, you should discourage your cat from jumping up there in the first place. Don't ever offer food on those elevated surfaces, because then your cat will think that the counter is a cat-friendly smorgasbord. Dogs love cars. They hang their heads out the window, tongues flapping like flags, drool splattering all over the guy who's tailgating you. So if dogs love cars, should cats love them too? Some people evidently think yes. It's actually pretty unclear why anyone would turn a cat loose in a car. Perhaps if you enjoy wearing a cat as a fashionable headpiece while you're driving down the freeway, and you don't especially care if you get into an accident, then maybe you should skip getting yourself a cat carrier. But from a common sense perspective, letting your cat roam free in a moving vehicle is a really terrible idea. In some states, it's actually legal to drive a car with your pet in your lap, notably California, where pretty much everything is illegal except for driving a car with a pet in your lap. That doesn't mean you should totally do it, though. A cat who freaks out and lands in the footwell can interfere with your ability to use the brakes or the gas. And if there's an accident, your cat doesn't stand a chance. It's totally not worth saving a few bucks on a carrier or whatever other inconceivable reason you had for doing this.
See, I told you he could drive.
Chauncey, look out!
Okay, let's just get this out there right up front. Wet cat food is gross, and there's no getting around that fact. Most cats love wet food, but even that's not always enough to convince weak-stomached cat owners to hold their noses and dish the stuff out every morning. So here's a little extra incentive, in case you're one of those people who would rather just avoid the mess and stick with the dry kibble. There are health reasons why you need to make sure your cat has wet food in addition to the dry stuff. Most cats don't drink a lot of water, so they need to get moisture from the things they eat. Cats are vulnerable to urinary tract infections, and the risk is compounded by a diet that is high in dry kibble and low in wet food. Cats are carnivores. Dogs, on the other hand, lean omnivore, so we worry about what they're eating a little more than we worry about what our cats are eating. Cats don't tend to enjoy the same sorts of foods dogs enjoy, or bother with much besides meat. Still, you should be aware that cats do occasionally eat plants. Grass eating in particular is kind of a cat pastime, and a cat that doesn't spend time outdoors may turn to houseplants to satisfy that odd desire to consume something green. So you do need to be careful about the type of plant life that you bring into your home. If it's one of the more than 400 species listed in the ASPCA's database of toxic plants, an experimental bite from your cat could prove fatal. So before you buy a new houseplant, it's important to double check to make sure it isn't something toxic.
Pothos, tulips, azaleas, and holiday plants like poinsettias, mistletoe, and Easter lilies are all on the list, but that's only a few of them.
Make sure to do your research before you go to the nursery. Keeping your cat outside is not a great idea, but that doesn't mean you need to restrict their time spent gazing longingly outside. You may think that a lip-licking cat sitting on a windowsill while birds cavort on the feeder just inches away is a sad sight, but rest assured that your cat is not suffering during that experience. Sure, getting to pounce on all those birds and bugs is probably pretty high on your cat's bucket list, but let's face it, it's not really in the best interests of the cat or the birds. It might help if you think of windows as movie screens for your cat. A cat watching the world go by is going to be a happier cat than a cat left in the dark with no visual stimulation. Of course, it is also your duty as a pet parent to make sure your cat has plenty of things to do inside, like chasing catnip mice and other objects that will not suffer grave injury or death because of the interaction. Cats and yarn go together like dogs and butt sniffing. Cats love to play with yarn, and that's not just a dumb stereotype. Give a cat a ball of yarn, and it's great entertainment for both of you. Would you believe, though, that yarn can actually be dangerous for your cat? The sandpaper tongue that cats use to groom themselves can be hazardous when paired with a piece of yarn, because the barbs on a cat's tongue make it impossible for a cat to spit out a bit of string once it gets caught.
At that point, the only alternative is to swallow the string.
That's not just unpleasant for your cat, it's also dangerous. The string can get caught in the intestines, causing intestinal tissue to bunch up. That, in turn, can restrict blood flow, which can lead to tissue death. Sometimes the yarn might even cause the tissue to tear, which can lead to systemic poisoning. Surgical removal of the yarn may be the only way to save your pet's life, and it's expensive. You can let your cat play with that ball of yarn while you're watching, but don't leave your cat alone with it. And take care that there are no strings, rubber bands, hair ties, or similar objects lying around your house that your cat might get into. Those things are just as dangerous. Collars can be life-saving for your pet. An indoor-only cat who goes out into the world can be quickly returned home with the help of a tagged collar. Microchipping can do the same thing, but only if the animal is picked up by a shelter or other organization that has the ability to read a microchip. For a fast return home, a collar is really your best bet. There are problems with collars, though. The wrong kind of collar can cause injury. It can get caught up on a branch or other object and cause entrapment and even strangulation. Sometimes cats can get their front legs under the collar, which might lead to bone breakage or laceration or other kinds of grave injuries to both the neck and the leg. So if you're going to put a collar on your pet, make sure it's the right kind of collar. Breakaway collars are designed to come off in dangerous situations. The drawback is that a cat who loses his or her breakaway collar won't be easy to identify, so you should always have a microchip in place as a backup. And remember, it's better to have a lost cat who at least has some potential to return home than an injured cat who may be lost forever. Perhaps you're tired of having to smell that stinky cat food every morning, or maybe the smell of the litter box is getting to be too much for you. So you bought yourself an essential oil diffuser to help return a sense of not stinky to your home. Well, there's mounting evidence that essential oil diffusers are really dangerous for cats. Essential oils are especially toxic to cats because they can be absorbed internally and externally through the skin. The oils are metabolized in the liver, and cats lack the enzyme required to process and eliminate them. An affected cat may drool, vomit, or have difficulty breathing. If the liver fails, the cat will die. Even if the cat doesn't come into physical contact with the stuff, just inhaling it can cause respiratory distress. Your best bet for removing the stink? Febreze, which contrary to rumor is not actually toxic to cats unless you spray it directly on their fur.
Wait, cats have breeds? Yes, it's true, there's more than just the breed domestic cat. While most of us ordinary humans obtain our cats from the local animal rescue or from a friend who adopted a pregnant stray, some people shell out money for fancy breeds of cat, and some people shell out extra large amounts of money for really fancy breeds of cat. So it might cost you up to $3,000 for a flat-faced Persian or $3,500 for an elegant Maine Coon according to people, but if you want to spend the really big bucks, there are a couple hybrid breeds that will give you points for having an exotic cat, as well as points for spending way more money on a cat than you really need to. According to the Cat Fanciers Association, the Bengal is a large domestic cat that has a rosette pattern on its coat, circular markings resembling those of a leopard. So if you want a domesticated cat that looks like a wild one, without the part where it kills you in your sleep and eats you, you could look into purchasing a Bengal. This breed can trace its ancestry back to 1963 when a breeder weirdly decided to cross a domestic cat with the Asian leopard cat, a small type of wild cat that you definitely don't want to raise in your home.
When this cat gets to be full grown, it can rip your face off. So,
why do you seem to revel in that imagery?
All modern Bengals are descended from that original breeding program, although no crossbreeding with wild cats still occurs. All Bengals are bred from other Bengals. One of these cats will cost between $1,500 and $5,000. You're probably wondering, can a domestic cat that's descended from a wild one really be considered completely domesticated? The Cat Fanciers Association says yes, although this breed does have a few quirks you won't find in most other domesticated cats. They'll happily learn tricks, for example, while most common house cats are clearly far above such things. Many of them actually enjoy getting wet, too, and you know how most common house cats feel about that. So Bengals are mostly like the cats we're used to sharing our homes with a few fun and unexpected differences. Dropping $5,000 is nothing, though, compared to the most expensive cat breed in the world. According to the Savannah Cat Association, the Savannah is another hybrid between a domestic cat and a wild cat. Savannahs are the product of breeding domestic short-hair cats to the African serval, which is a long-legged, spotted species with large ears and a short tail. There are a lot of genetic differences between domestic cats and servals, so early generations of Savannah produced fertile females and sterile males. In later generations, the males were fertile too, so breeders could start breeding Savannahs to other Savannahs. Today's Savannah is still sort of a work in progress. Unlike Bengal cat breeders, who no longer cross in Asian leopard cats, Savannah breeders are still producing cats that are 50% African serval. So if you want a cat that is literally half wild, somewhere out there is a breeder who will happily take your money. Or you can get later generations of Savannahs that are the result of breeding Savannah to Savannah. How much you spend on your Savannah cat depends a lot on which generation the animal is and how closely it resembles a serval. So you may only spend $1,500 on a pet quality 6th or 7th generation Savannah, but if you want a first generation breeding quality female that looks pretty darn similar to a wild African cat, You could pay up to $18,000 or even $20,000 depending on where you go. That's around the price of a small car, so hopefully you'll enjoy your Savannah cat so much you won't ever want to leave the house. Yeah, these cats are pretty amazing, but they're not wanting for homes. If you just want a cat to love, an animal shelter or rescue organization is still the best place to go.
In 2013, geneticist Jung Bak of South Korea's Genome Research Foundation told the BBC that a tiger is, quote, just a big domestic cat. How true is it? Well, cats share 95.6% of their DNA with tigers, but that doesn't mean that every house cat has a Bengal tiger inside them. Genetics say one thing, but cat psychology actually paints a little bit of a different picture. Though Bach proclaimed tigers to be gigantic house cats, IFL Science claims a house cat, quote, is basically a tiny lion. That assertion is based on a 2014 study published in the Journal of Comparative Psychology. The Bronx Zoo collaborated with researchers at the University of Edinburgh to compare personality traits of domestic cats with those of the Scottish wildcat, snow leopard, clouded leopard, and African lion using a detailed personality survey. They measured feline neuroticism, agreeableness, and other characteristics typically attributed to humans, and results proclaimed that house cats mostly closely resemble lions. But would cats agree? And if so, which breed best resembles the king of the jungle? A cat fit for a king of the jungle should have a fittingly feral name, and the Chaucy fits that bill to a T. The breed's name comes from the Latin phrase Felis chas, which literally translates to jungle cat. This also affects the cat's origins. A hybrid of the Abyssinian and South Central Asia's jungle cat, the Chaucy was bred into existence during the 1990s.
I feel like creating cat today.
Strong, athletic, and energetic, this social animal can leap 6 to 8 feet with ease and is an elite hunter. The Chaucy has been likened to a small mountain lion because of its appearance, though some Chaucys are black as well. And while it might not be a big cat, it's definitely a big house cat, standing 14 to 18 inches tall and weighing up to 30 pounds. This little lion also enjoys having a human pride to pal around with and shouldn't be left alone for extended periods of time. So it's a great pet for couch potatoes who don't mind being shamed by their much more active and physically gifted feline companion. Yes, if looks could kill, a Chaucy would kill you like a mountain lion because that's what it looks like. But while beauty is only skin deep, this pretty kitty's similarity to a lion isn't. The Chaucy must eat meat, full stop. Its intestines can't take plants, so feeding them any kind of veggies can cause inflammation or malnutrition. That's a notable departure from many other cat breeds, which, according to University of Pennsylvania veterinarian nutritionist Catherine Michelle, can learn to consume veggie kibble if it has a familiar enough texture and consistency. That meaty accessory makes the Chaucy more akin to big cats, which are obligate carnivores. Philadelphia Zoo Nutrition Program Director Barbara Todds told Popular Science that feeding a veggie burger to a lion would be like, quote, putting gasoline in a diesel engine. The Chaucy might come closest to looking like the king of the jungle, but one of its ancestors might come closer to being a regal feline. Just like the Chaucy, the Abyssinian resembles a miniature mountain lion.
What is that?
And unlike the Chaucy, which has only existed since the late 20th century, the Abyssinian didn't result from humans playing God with two distinct breeds of cat. On the contrary, the Abyssinian was once thought to have descended from a god that humans worshipped. The elegant Abyssinian likely originated in ancient Egypt and is the breed that most closely resembles the sacred cats of the past. The Egyptian goddess of cats was Bastet, which, appropriately enough, was depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness. If the Abyssinian was the spiritual descendant of Bastet, then the argument could be made that it has the soul of a lion, if not the body. But this is only half of the Chaucy's ancestral ingredients. The other half of the Chaucy hybrid, the jungle cat, may have been domesticated in ancient Egypt, where the cats were also mummified. In that sense, the Abyssinian and jungle cat may have been a match made in cat heaven, making the Chaucy a product of divine intervention.
Here's a totally trash golden rule for you. If you want a loyal, obedient buddy that will adore you with its whole heart and light up when you see it, buy a dog. If you want a fluffy companion that will ignore you at every opportunity and bring you dead mice you never asked for because it thinks you're too incompetent to hunt, get a cat. All seems pretty simple, right? Well, actually, things aren't always so black and white. Despite being one of the world's oldest dog breeds, for example, the Basenji famously behaves like a cat. Similarly, some cats behave a lot like dogs. But which breed comes closest to being man's best friend? Often labeled the dogs of the cat world, Maine Coon cats are large, gentle, and play well with others, including children and other people's pets. Unlike other kinds of felines, these cats love water too, and they really love to please people. Proud Maine Coon owner Ashley Osterman told How Stuff Works, "My cat Maddie lays next to me all of the time and even follows me from room to room in my apartment. Maine Coons can even enjoy playing fetch, and some have been taught how to walk on a leash. Although it's worth noting that the RSPCA has warned against putting cats on leashes, explaining that even a cool cat like the Maine Coon could easily lose control, and that treating your cat like a dog in that regard may do more harm than good. But what about the Manx? From the sound of things, Manx cats are constantly experiencing the world's most adorable identity crisis, since humans have likened the Manx to both a dog and a rabbit. Their name comes from their native Isle of Man, where they appeared near the beginning of the 18th century. To this day, the Manx still appears on the reverse of some of the Isle of Man's coins. According to legend, the famously tailless Manx is the fluffy love child of a rabbit and a cat. In reality, a genetic mutation led to the cute stub for which they're famous, with that particular mutation resulting from years of inbreeding. Moreover, not all Manx cats are tailless, and some even have normal-length tails, giving rise to the nickname Longies. Like the Maine Coon, the Manx likes water. It also likes to ride in cars, follow people around, play fetch, and play watchdog. Protecting loved ones isn't a game to the Manx, though, and it will take guarding its human family very seriously. Unfortunately, they're not exactly the most intimidating animals either. Still, what they lack in brawn, they make up for in brains. Manx cats are incredibly clever and are even able to turn on faucets and open doors. They're also known to be quite talkative and will hold a conversation with you in a quiet trill. And then there's the Savannah. Unlike the Maine Coon and the Manx, the Savannah cat is actually dog-like by design, and the breed is only actually a few decades old. Loyalty is their hallmark trait, with some owners reporting that their Savannahs have actually showered with them. A mix of the more feral, servile, and domesticated cats, Savannahs maintain some of their wild instincts, and many owners end up coming down with a raging case of buyer's remorse.
What is up with that cat?
Is someone throwing it?
And although Savannahs interact well with children and dogs when properly socialized, Susan Bass of the Florida's Big Cat Rescue Sanctuary told the Dodo that she's had to perform some big human rescues. She explains, "We get calls all the time from people asking us, begging us to take them off their hands." Savannahs are also notorious for howling at night and can pose a danger to children and the elderly. If that wasn't bad enough, they have acidic, foul-smelling urine that has a tendency to be sprayed over pretty much everything. In fact, according to Bass, Savannahs are pretty much the opposite of dogs, but they're not really much like cats either. Think of them more as howling, spraying shower monsters, and you're probably a little closer to reality.
It sounds like something from a horror story, house cats bigger than people. But in reality, it turns out that giant cats are even more cute and awesome than normal-sized cats. So if you love cats, brace yourselves, because here's a look at some very special felines that are almost bigger than their owners. Stewie. As of the making of this video, the current Guinness World Record holder for longest cat is Stewie, clocking in at just over 4 feet long. But really, Stewie looks more like a living slinky than a cat, or maybe an eel with fur glued on. If Cruella de Vil was real, all you'd need to do would be to give her that cat, and she'd never need to kill another animal again. She'd just drape it over her shoulders. Unfortunately, Stewie passed away back in 2013, but this Maine Coon will always have a very special and extremely large place in our hearts. Pickles, aka Catosaurus Rex. One name isn't enough for a cat this big, so he got two. Pickles and Catosaurus Rex. The second was an internet-given nickname when he was put up for adoption on the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals website. No one knows exactly how he got so big, but some experts believe that he's part Maine Coon, because he's actually bigger than the state of Maine. Despite being roughly the size of a barge, according to owners Andrew and Emily, he still acts like a small kitten, which tends to lead to things getting broken quite often, like backs. Leo the King. Though he only weighs about 20 pounds, Leo the King still seems a lot larger than other cats, partially because of his fur. When he was shaved, not even down to the skin, he lost 2 entire pounds. So despite no such title existing, we're going to go ahead and call him World's Hairiest Cat. Let's just hope the owners of this Maine Coon have a really good vacuum cleaner. Scarlet's Magic. Once known as the world's tallest cat, Scarlet's Magic has since been dethroned, though she still has that awesome sign to show for it. And she also has the second title to fall back on as the largest living domestic cat. Scarlet's Magic is from the Savannah breed, which is part African serval, and which her owners claim is the smartest type of cat around. That must make it especially galling when she coughs up a hairball in her owner's bed, because you know she just did it on purpose.
Hairball.
Meow. Okay, so this cat loses points for having the least creative name in the history of pets. Still, at a whopping 37 pounds, Meow would seem to be a shoo-in candidate for the Guinness World Record for fattest cat. However, he wasn't even considered for two simple reasons. The previous record holder weighed nearly 50 pounds, and after that, Guinness discontinued the category because they were worried that people would overfeed their pets in an attempt to get the record. Still, Meow got a pretty good consolation prize, some quality alone time with Anderson Cooper. If only we could all be so lucky.
I don't want to say it loud, but it's like holding a big tub of Jell-O.
Trouble. You know how people say, uh-oh, you're in trouble? Well, we never thought it meant an actual location, but after looking at this thing, yeah, we think you could probably be in trouble. That's because Trouble is the world's tallest cat, at 19 inches from head to tail, thanks in part to being part African serval. That also explains why Trouble looks like a miniature leopard and eats rabbit meat instead of cat food. Here's hoping she never develops a taste for human flesh.
Let's face it, a cat's cuteness factor helps it get away with a lot. Sure, you'd probably prefer it if a furry paw didn't knock everything off the table, but it's hard to stay mad at your adorable, curious little housemate. As close as you and your kitty are, there are a ton of common myths out there about cats that aren't true. Everyone has an opinion, and some people believe cats should be kept as their ancestors were, allowed to roam outside, kill small animals, and potentially die a horrible death. Keeping a cat indoors is cruel, they say. Well, they're wrong. According to feline behaviorist Jane Ehrlich, pet cats should 100% be kept inside. Indoor cats aren't at risk of being hit by a car, being snatched by a predator, getting trapped somewhere, or being exposed to something that will make them sick. They're also going to be more well-adjusted, psychologically speaking, because they're not always on edge and looking for danger around every corner. As long as indoor cats have access to toys, cat trees, places they can climb and hide, and a safe, interactive environment, they'll live not just long lives, but happy ones. If you've come home to an empty food dish and a yowling cat, you know you're only good for one thing, opening the cat food. But a study from Oregon State University tried to find out what cats prefer most in their lives. According to Science Direct, they took two groups of cats, pet cats and cats from shelters, and presented them with options of food, socializing with a human, or playing with a toy. By the end of the test, they found the majority of cats would opt for attention from the human even over some tasty food. Toys and scent stimuli didn't even stand a chance, and while there were differences between individual cats, there wasn't a statistical difference between the pet cats and the shelter cats. Consider this next time your cat gets mouthy when you come home. He may just be mad you were gone so long. Talk to a cat person and they'll insist cats are smarter. Talk to a dog person and it's canine brilliance that'll be touted. Both are wrong, and here's why. The first part of the answer is simply that we don't know how smart cats are because, well, they're cats. One of the world's foremost experts in animal cognition laughed when Slate asked him if he'd worked with cats. It was easier to work with fish, he said. Cats are just programmed differently. They described dogs as being tuned to a single frequency or channel all the time, while cats are channel surfers. Not smarter, not dumber, just different in a way we don't understand yet. According to the BBC, researchers from Kyoto University took some major steps in deciphering cat thoughts in 2017. When they tested cats, dogs, and their capacity for memory, they found both animals performed equally well. If you've ever left work in the morning and come home to find your cat in the exact same spot, you'd probably see that as proof cats are lazy. They're not. While it's true they appear to be sleeping for as much as 16 hours a day, cat behavior associates say they usually aren't really sleeping. Most of the snooze time is spent in a sort of doze, where all the senses are still alert and listening for prey, predators, or the crinkle-crinkle of a treat bag. They're not exactly on high alert, but could still respond quickly if something interesting happens nearby. According to Vet Street, there's a biological reason little mittens need so much downtime: diet. Cats are meat eaters, and long periods of rest or near rest help their digestive systems handle all that protein. Researchers have been trying to unlock the secrets of cat communication for a long time, but not surprisingly, cats don't like to cooperate. According to the BBC, it's only fairly recently they learned where the purr originates, a neural oscillator tucked away in the depths of the cat brain. One feline psychology researcher found that different cats purr differently under different circumstances. Sure, they purr when they're happy and content, but they also purr when they're alone or with other cats. Other cat psychologists suggest it's not an involuntary reaction, but a type of communication that starts when they're kittens. Purring helps them tell mom they're hungry, and that probably has something to do with why many purr when their human parents feed them. There are a ton of theories about the different kinds of cat purrs, including a nifty one about a purr that resonates at the same frequency bones heal. The theory is that when kitty curls up with someone who has a headache or injury and starts purring away, they might be trying to help.
Ernest Hemingway was, in the minds of many, the last of a particular breed of man's man. He was a Pulitzer and Nobel Prize winner. After being turned down by every branch of the military on account of his poor eyesight, he worked as an ambulance driver during World War I, then as a reporter during the Spanish Civil War and World War II, coming within spitting distance of the Normandy landings and leading a French resistance militia. More than a half-century after he took his own life on July 2, 1961, he remains the quintessential 20th century icon of liquored-up American masculinity, and his writing lives on as an inseparable aspect of Western culture. Oh, and six-toed cats are named for him because they have totally overrun his house. Yes, it's super weird, but totally true. His home in Key West, which now exists as a museum dedicated to the writer's memory, is home to a multitude of six-toed cats. What's going on there? Well, while most cats only have 5 toes on each front paw and 4 on each back paw, there exists a genetic abnormality called polydactyly, in which cats are born with extra toes. And according to the Hemingway Home Museum, that was the case with Hemingway's cat Snow White, aka Snowball, which the author received as a gift back in the 1930s. From what can be gathered about Snow White's life, the kitty was down for whatever, and he spread his genetic whatnots all across Key West, making sure not to forget that sweet, sweet polydactyly gene. As a result, dozens of cats now residing at the Hemingway home all either possess extra toes or are very likely to pass the trait on to their offspring.
We have 48 cats on the property today. Half of them have the physical trait, the actual 6 toes, but they all carry that recessive gene in the DNA.
Fortunately, polydactyly isn't dangerous, and it doesn't usually cause the cats any pain or other health issues, which is good because some cats with the condition have more than just 6 toes. The Guinness World Record holders are a pair of felines who have a total of 28 toes instead of the 18. Also called mitten cats, thumb cats, or, appropriately, Hemingway cats, these animal X-Men have a storied history. According to the Straight Dope, they may have been a rarity for years, due to their perceived association with witchcraft leading to a whole lot of cat hunting. Sailors, however, apparently thought they brought good luck, and a trade route between England and Massachusetts seems to have been what brought them to the United States and gave them an over-toed foothold, genetically speaking. Today, the cats of the Ernest Hemingway Home and Museum live a series of 9 charmed lives each. Following the tradition initiated by Hemingway, all of the sweet kitties are named after famous people, with museum staff deciding new additions' names by vote. Past names have included Cary Grant, Marilyn Monroe, and Harry Truman. The cats also receive top-of-the-line care, undergoing annual checkups on top of weekly wellness checks from a local veterinarian, and even safely riding out destructive hurricanes. Still, it's an unwritten law of nature that any house with pets numbering in the double digits is going to wind up with a well-intentioned neighbor calling the authorities, and in the early 2000s, that's exactly what happened. According to NPR, a visitor to the Hemingway Museum called in a complaint, citing concerns about the welfare of the house's multitude of many-toed cats. The situation escalated into a federal case, and its eventual outcome led to a bonkers moment in feline history. It was decided that since the cats drew interstate business to the museum, their well-being fell under the jurisdiction of the federal government, which means when it comes to the cats of Hemingway House, Uncle Sam has the authority to show up and demand that one of them needs more belly scratches.
Yes, he does, under penalty of fines or imprisonment.